All right, so I want to give you our next notes on photosynthesis. So far we've been talking about the cell, what makes things, what makes something a living thing, and now we're just going to kind of start going through some of these processes and link them to um, those characteristics of all living things. And if you remember, those characteristics are their cells, everything. If you're living, you have cells. You can reproduce. You can grow and develop. You can respond to your environment. You can, or they have a universal genetic code, DNA, and so on. Um, oh, obtain and use energy, right? That's what we're talking about. Obtain and use energy. Okay, so this is what we're going to look at today. And just like I said, the cell is the basic unit of all living things. Uh, this Within the cell, there's little organelles, literally little organs that help the cell complete these functions or to obtain and use energy. The process where an organism obtains energy is photosynthesis. And again, we see the definition here: production of energy from sunlight, which is kind of an amazing thing because you think about it, sunlight is, it's not something tangible that you can hold in your hand, but the plant uses sunlight and uses other things that you can hold in your hand, like um, water, and uses carbon dioxide, which isn't so easy to hold in your hand. But if you froze it, you could maybe. Um, so we're just talking about production of energy from sunlight, and this is helping any living thing obtain and use energy. The organisms that can do this are plants for the most part, and protists. Anything that can do this is an autotroph. So this is an organism that can do photosynthesis. And they are the bedrock of our ecosystem. We kind of did something in class where we talked about food chains, and at the bottom of that food chain is our plants, for the most part, algae, and a few protists. Now, again, like I said in class, there's always going to be uh, exceptions, but for the most part, when we're talking about photosynthesis and large-scale photosynthesis that all other organisms rely on, we're talking about plants. And again, we call those autotrophs. And in this process of photosynthesis, it produces sugar, which is this right here, C6H12O6. That's glucose. And it also produces oxygen, which is really good because we need oxygen. And the great thing, if you think about it, it produces this, but it uses this. And CO2 is something that humans produce, and it's been set up so that plants use CO2 and they produce oxygen. And we produce the CO2 for them and they produce the oxygen for us. And then the whole process needs water. And if you look, this is the equation. We're going to talk about this other stuff in a minute. But this is the equation. So carbon dioxide and water, the plants then take those two substances and they make glucose and they make oxygen. And if you look at these, carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, oxygen. So they're just rearranging these, right? It uses the energy from sunlight to do that. It uses some other things as well. But within the plant, there is something called a chloroplast. And a chloroplast is a membrane-bound organelle. Many of the eukaryotic cells, which are the more complex, they have membrane-bound organelles. So if you think of a cell, pretend this is a cell first, it has this outer layer, it's a membrane, has phospholipids in it. Well, we could also look at an organelle that has a outer membrane having a similar kind of design as a cell. A chloroplast is one of those. So a chloroplast has a membrane around it, and then it has these little pancake type things in here, little stacks. And within these stacks, these are all kind of enclosed in here. And within these sacs is where this whole process takes place. Another thing, though, you need to be able to do this is chlorophyll. and chlorophyll A and B. This is the green pigment material. It makes plants green, and this helps in this process as well. So this kind of has to be there as well. And it has something to do this whole process. It has something called an electron transport chain. We're just going to look at one of these, but it's good to understand what's going on, but it's not vital to know every little part of this. Okay? But really, this occurs in a chloroplast, and it occurs in two reactions. There's the light reaction. This has to have sunlight or it cannot occur. And then there's the dark reaction. This is the Calvin cycle. We'll look at these in more detail, I'm sure, in class when we come in. But really, you see the the light reactions, they occur in this little open area inside the chloroplast, and then these dark reactions occur between these two, this inner part of the chloroplast and this little grana type pancake thing. So there's stuff going on inside here, and just like if you remember from this with the cell membrane, it has these little phospholipid bilayers, right? And there's can be a little protein channel in here. Okay. And you might have something like O2 on this side. And it needs to get through this membrane. Well, these little sacs are just like that. It has substances on one side. It has different substances on the inside, different amount, different concentration gradients, and then it moves stuff back and forth. And as it does that, it creates certain compounds. The main compound that this produces is glucose, right? Okay. And this is really the main byproduct for energy. CO or O2 we need for other things to stay alive, but also this relies on ATP, which is adenine triphosphate. And we're going to talk more about this in class. But this is they call it currency. It's what's needed to make energy. So within these chloroplasts, there is ATP, and then the chloroplast uses that ATP through these chemical reactions to make glucose and oxygen. And really, these are byproducts, right? And it's great that they are because we need them. And every living thing, whether you're a moose, whether you're a person, whether you're a tiger, whatever you all depend upon plants because we cannot do this process. Humans, if you're not an autotroph, maybe you're a heterotroph instead, cannot do photosynthesis, you can't get your energy unless you eat one of these things, a plant. And now again, it might not be direct. So like you might have a person, they're out using a bow and hunting, and they shoot a moose. I'll just call it moose here. And this moose eats grass or something. Okay. We might say, well, we're not eating grass, but really we are because the moose is eating the grass, and then we get that energy. When we eat a moose, we get the energy that the moose obtained from plants. So we're kind of dependent upon the grass, even if we're just carnivore diet. All I do is eat meat, but still, the thing that you're eating is eating grass, so you're getting it indirectly. But that's kind of photosynthesis. Autotrophs can do it. They need sunlight for one part of the process. Then they have the other reactions that can occur without sunlight. But again, the things that are needed in these reactions, the Calvin cycle, they're produced in this one. So you can't like skip it. You need, in the reality of it, you do need sunlight because you need the things produced in this part are used in the Calvin cycle, which is the dark reactions. You can see the total overall reaction is right here. Carbon dioxide plus water produces, and we can put sunlight right here, which gives it the energy to do it, and it produces glucose and oxygen. And that's photosynthesis. Let me know if you have any questions. We'll look at this further.